Okay, we've made it to chapter 38, and wow, we things are getting intense. They are tunneling underneath the death strip. Mama has now joined them. She is trying to help them out, and as they are tunneling, they are hearing noises coming near them. Uh, from the tunnel. They're wondering if there's some other people from East Berlin trying to tunnel near them. They're wondering if the Stasi are tunneling down to try to discover what's going on down there. They're wondering if someone else, including possibly Papa, is tunneling from the west side. So they don't know. They're really nervous about it. They're not sure what to do. And make sure that you have your annotation sheet nearby. Take great annotations. Take really good notes while we're reading. Stop when you need to do that. And we're going to dive right into chapter 38, which begins with a quote from Martin Luther. So this isn't Martin Luther King Jr. In fact, Martin Luther King Jr., I believe, was named after Martin Luther. He was a German priest, and he said, "Everything that is done in the world is done by hope." Hey, curfew was approaching, which brought on another fight with Mama. Fritz and I wanted to keep working. With only 2 days left before he would be expected to report for military duty, our time crunch was worse than ever. So remember, Fritz was supposed to join the military. He was required to join when he's 18, but he just received a letter stating that they are going to force him to join the military early. So they had very little time before, and now they find out that they have even less time than they thought. So pretty bad stuff. They're in a pickle here. If my father was on the other side, then we would connect with him tonight and be free. And what if it's not him? Mama asked. I didn't dare to think about that. If it wasn't him, then our efforts were doomed. No, we were doomed. We won't get much farther tonight, Mama said. We're all exhausted, and it's important for whoever is listening in our apartment to hear your voices. Besides, if there's bad news coming our way, I'd rather they find our tunnel while we're not here. Mama was right about everything, especially that we were exhausted. Too tired, in fact, to put up any reasonable, top of page 248, any reasonable protest for staying. So we put down our tools and followed her home. In my bedroom that night, I was so excited about what might be in the other tunnel that I was sure I would never get to sleep. But within only seconds, sleep found me anyway. Okay, so they're using some personification right here, right? Remember, personification is when you give human traits to something that's not human. And she was just saying that the sleep found her, right? So finding something is more of like a human trait. I awoke early and deliberately made plenty of noise so everyone else could wake up too. We had a quick breakfast, chatting cheerfully the entire time about how excited we were for Fritz to report to military service the next day, and about our confidence that once the state saw how well he served, Mama would surely be restored to her former job. Okay, so why are they making these comments that clearly they don't feel? They don't want Fritz to go into military duty. Why are they doing that? Yeah, remember their apartment is bugged. There are microphones there that were placed by the Stasi, and they're listening to everything, right? So they're trying to say things that they want the Stasi to hear. Lies. I was tired of always having to lie. As soon as we felt it was appropriate, we ventured back onto the street. In our anticipation to reach the tunnel, we started down the sidewalk too quickly and bumped straight into Frau Eberhardt. Oh no! Remember, they found out that she is an informant to the Stasi. She is reporting everything that she suspects to the Stasi. The dour woman clearly wasn't in a good mood this morning. She scowled when she saw us in work clothes and brushed herself off, even though I was sure we hadn't gotten any dirt on her. I excused their poor manners while you were out of town, Frau Eberhard told my mother, but I thought they'd have improved again when you returned, not worsened. You bumped into them, my mother snapped. You should be the one apologizing. Frau Eberhard straightened herself up and evaluated, top of page 249, evaluated my mother's appearance. I thought you were a church-going lady, but it seems you have more important plans today. Mama and I looked at each other. With so much else to think about, none of us had remembered today was a Sunday. Mama attempted to excuse it with a joke. Well, Frau Eberhard, I suppose some days the Lord wants us in his house, and some days he wants us going about his work. Which are you choosing? Frau Eberhard reacted by wrinkling her nose, as if we smelled. Maybe we did. And the Lord's work is gardening? Did your daughter mention that she promised me some of the harvest from that garden? She seemed to think it might encourage me to keep quiet in case I saw anything suspicious. Mamma smiled at Fritz and me. Why don't you two go on ahead? We have to talk, mother to mother. Fritz grabbed my arm and pulled me off with him. By the time I looked back, they were already engaged in what looked like a very tense conversation. Something had changed in Mamma over the last few days. She looked tired and worried, just as we all did, but she seemed younger and stronger too, as if digging the tunnel had reclaimed the spirit of who she used to be. Frau Eberhard was right, I said. I did sort of bribe her. Let Mother work it out, Fritz said. Our job is to dig. Okay, we're at the top of page 250. 250. After we made it into the shelter, Fritz and I had the luxury of deciding what to do about the second tunnel without Mama getting a vote. We knew what she'd have wanted, and that once she made up her mind, the decision would be final. For Mama, any risk was too much risk. But Fritz thought Mama had made some good points last night. Other families have escaped through tunnels, he said. If the Stasi have gone to such efforts to barricade the ground above us, why not below as well? I disagreed. Why didn't Officer Mueller warn us then? Officer Mueller never said he was on our side. Fritz was right about that. If anything, Mueller had promised just the opposite, that if we were discovered, he would be there for our arrest. So remember, Officer Mueller had come into the tunnel. They were really worried that he was going to turn them in to the other officers, and instead they invited Officer Mueller to bring his family and cross into West Berlin with them. Officer Mueller never made it certain whether or not he agreed to that, but he did tell them that they should hurry and that he would consider the offer, and then they told Officer Mueller that they would leave a sign out in the yard of the Welcome Building when they were done with the tunnel. They said that they would leave a shovel in the dirt, and that would be the sign that the tunnel was complete. All right. I listened again with my ear pressed against the tunnel wall, but this time there were no sounds. Either the other tunnel had moved farther away from us, or else nobody was digging right now. I grabbed the shovel and began digging in that direction. Whatever is ahead of us, we can't quit now, I said. Maybe it's Stasi, but what I fear even more is missing Papa's tunnel. So Fritz relented and worked with me. We had to move carefully because of other pipes overhead, and there were large rocks in front of us, but at least we were digging again. Mama joined us soon after. When we asked what had taken so long, she said, Frau Eberhard believes you two are, top of page 251, you two are up to something. I tried to convince her otherwise, but she insisted I was in denial. Children today are more slippery than they used to be. A lazy mother can miss the signs, Mama huffed. She sits outside all day like a lump and then accuses me of laziness? I shrugged. You're not lazy, but in all this mud, I can believe that I'm quite slippery. Mama laughed, then grew serious again when she said, Our conversation moved to Herr Kraus's death. She's upset about it, just like the rest of us. She admitted that she was the one who had turned him in, but also insists she had no idea what they would do to him. I told her to go inside and stop asking so many questions, or there would be more deaths. Does she suspect about the tunnel? Fritz asked. I don't think so, but she didn't go inside either. Shh! Quiet down! I hissed. Shh! I paused from digging and pressed my ear against the dirt. The sounds in the other tunnel had begun, and they were closer than ever. It was impossible to know exactly, but I was sure whoever was on the other side must be within an arm's length of us. Then, very high up, a stick poked sideways through the dirt. It was no rounder than an earthworm, but there was lantern light on the other side, far more light than what we allowed ourselves here. None of us breathed. The stick went forward and wiggled as if the person on the other end was feeling for more dirt or some rock. Top of page 252, feeling nothing. It was withdrawn, and then the more focused beam of a flashlight came through. Still, we said nothing and didn't even move. We had been discovered. But by whom? Then In a low voice I well remembered from my childhood, someone sang an even more familiar tune. They dig and they rake and they sing a song. Papa. Okay, wow, so exciting. Okay, my friends, let's get right to chapter 39. Okay, it begins with a quote from Gunther Wetzel. He escaped from East Germany with his family in a hot air balloon in 1979. Okay, they have made movies about his story. This one's famous. Okay, his quote is, I was aware that it could all go horribly wrong. Okay. Ooh, that makes it a little tense, guys. I wonder what's going to happen here. We're on page 253, and we're going to start out by reading Fritz immediately started to widen the hole, but after a quick greeting, Papa warned him to stop. Why? It took real effort to keep from kicking the dirt wall down entirely, and my tone showed it. Sweet Goethe, how I've missed you! Papa's voice wavered a bit, then became serious again as he said, We're too shallow. We've been measuring this morning, and we're certain we've been slowly tunneling uphill. Last night we heard the dogs over us. They might even be able to detect us below. We heard barking, and maybe we're the reason why. Then let's dig lower! The impatience I felt streamed through me like raw energy. The fact that we were just sitting here, so close and yet conversing through a tiny hole in the dirt, was impossibly frustrating. Okay, we're at the top of page 254. Mama stepped forward and put her hand on my shoulder. Patience, Goethe. This must be done right. There was silence, and then my father's voice broke as if he was crying. Katharina? My dear wife, is that you? I looked up at my mother in the low light, saw her tears on her cheeks. It's me. I'm here, she answered. I'll do us. I tried to get back to you, my love, all this time. Mama pressed her hand against the wall, as if touching it brought her closer to my father. Suddenly, I felt shame for my anger toward her these past 4 years, when my father seemed to have held on to nothing but his love for her. Who was I to judge her when he had not? In apology, I wrapped an arm around her and nestled closer as she brought me against her side. Then another voice came through. Mama? I didn't recognize it, but only one other person would have said that word. Dominic? Mama pressed even closer against the dirt. She folded a little, and for the first time I began to understand how painful it must have been to be separated from one of her children. Tears filled my eyes, but with such a filthy hand I could only let them fall. Behind me, even Fritz sniffed with emotion. You never should have dug this tunnel, Fritz, Papa said. The danger of it. Careful who you blame, Fritz said. It was Goethe who started this. Top of page 255. Goethe? He stopped and chuckled lightly. I see that she is no less headstrong than the night I left. My wonderful, brave girl, I should have known. Even from here, I heard his sigh. You suggested it, Papa, I said. I saw you. I only wanted you to know we were coming, he said, so you could be ready. Fritz gave me a look. That was exactly what he had told me. Then Papa continued, but now that we're this close, I'm glad you did. We'd have been another couple of weeks to get over to you. Let us keep digging, Fritz said. We could open this tunnel in the next few hours. Then we must dig deeper, Papa said. I don't like the way the dirt looks above us. It's like clay beneath our feet, Fritz said. It'll take a month to bridge the tunnels if we have to go lower. But he started anyway. The tunnel wasn't wide enough here for Mama and I to help, and Fritz wasn't emptying enough of the dense, packed soil to require us to remove it. Papa said he had to go back to help carry out some dirt. We promised him that we would wait there. Hour after hour passed with very slow progress on our end. The dirt on Papa's side was collapsing and sealed up the hole we had made with the stick, and even the little gap Fritz, top of page 256, the gap Fritz had made. Then Fritz suggested he and Mama should better fortify our end of the tunnel for when the entire gap was broken open. We need more bricks, Fritz said, eyeing the dirt above him. If it starts to collapse when we join these tunnels, I want to be ready. There's still some bricks left upstairs, I offered. Not many, but maybe one more pile on the main floor. Be careful, Mama said. Send them down in the bucket when you're ready, and I'll unload them into the tunnel. I hurried out of the shelter, up the ladder, into the basement, and then up the stairs onto the main floor. The bricks were indeed there as I had thought, but it occurred to me that in this daytime light I could possibly see into the death strip and confirm that our propped-up door had repaired the dark patch on the ground. It was a terrible risk to be up there with no shadows to keep me in the safe zones, but I was also becoming used to risks, and this one had to be taken. I crept to the upper floor, aware of each step I took and of even the smallest movements I made. I went slowly and kept my body pressed to the wall as if I were part of it. The window in front of me was missing its glass, but if I stayed low, that would be the best place for a view. All it would take was for a watchtower guard to look at this building while my head was visible, and it would be over. Alarms would sound, dogs would be called, and shots would be, top of page 257, shots would be fired. Nobody would be quicker to acknowledge the stupidity of me being up here on the very same day as we would surely break through to my father. But I thought about what Papa had said, that they had gone too shallow, and that worried me. I would look very quickly, no hesitations, no stares, just the quickest glance into the center of the death strip, so fast that if I happened to catch the corner of a guard's eye, when he looked again, I would be gone, and he would assume it was a trick of the light. The best news would be to see the dark spot was entirely gone. There wasn't much chance of that, but I hoped at least it was no worse, and then I would look a little farther on to Papa's side of the tunnel. After brushing away the sweat from my palms, I peeked through the window, but suddenly couldn't tear myself away. I had heard the phrase frozen in fear, but never understood it before, not like I did in that moment. When I finally forced myself back against the wall, my heart was racing so much that I could barely breathe. Nobody had seen me, or at least no alarms were sounding, but our problem was just as awful. A line seemed to be caving in on Papa's side. It wasn't just one little sunken area like with ours. Papa's entire tunnel was going to collapse. Stop! I cried once I re-entered the tunnel. I flew past my mother into the shelter, ignored her question about what, top of page 258, what had taken me so long, and grabbed Fritz's arm. Papa's tunnel is collapsing, just like ours. I saw it. Just now, I went to the upper floor and saw it. Fritz's mouth opened, then shut, and then he used the handle of the shovel to push another hole through to Papa's side. Papa wasn't there, but Dominic was, and Fritz relayed our panicked message. Instantly, we heard Dom run off, calling for our father. When Papa returned to talk with us, Fritz told him the danger signs we had noticed earlier on our end. I see it here, Papa said. There are fissures in the earth where it's begun to separate. How have I missed it? Goethe said the problem runs through most of the length of your tunnel. You have to prop it up now, Fritz cried. Use anything you have, brick or wood, or anything that will hold it up. Get out of your end, Papa said. If our tunnel collapses, yours will go down too. We can't, Fritz said. We have to finish tonight. If I don't report for military service tomorrow, they'll arrest me. Do not report there, Papa said. Do you hear me? If they get hold of you, we'll never get you out again. Come back early in the morning. If I haven't stabilized this tunnel by then, it'll be too late anyway. I want you all to make preparations to leave. Either you pass through this tunnel tomorrow, top of page 259, or you'll all have to leave the city and hide until we can figure out another way. Hold us, Mama cried. If it collapses and you're in there. Get out, Papa said. Now that I'm looking, the failure is worse than I thought. We can help, Mama said. Papa's voice was firm, just the way I remembered it on the night he had said goodbye 4 years ago. Please, Katharina, get my children out of that tunnel. I can't work if I have to worry about you too. We had no choice. We ran from the tunnel without knowing whether we would ever see it again, whether we would ever see our father again, or ever again have a chance at freedom. Oh, man, tough stuff. Okay, take fabulous notes.